So my next title is Trips Away and On the Road. So I think there's only one place we can really start with this.
Ibiza?
I was going to make that second, actually, but
okay.
if you want to get Dirty Ibiza out of the way.
no, I'll go. Let's go with your flow.
I'll go with my flow. I've put down Australia 96 as the first one, because I think that was our first big trip away, wasn't it?
3 weeks we were there for.
3 weeks.
Yeah. That sent the fear of God through me.
Yeah, obviously, because obviously you mentioned earlier that you'd struggled with things like that. But my God, what a trip that was.
That was a life-changing experience, that was.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we went with Vinyl Groover, Ramos Supreme, Marley.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else was there.
I think that was it, wasn't it, out of the UK lot?
Was it just us lot, yeah?
I think so, yeah.
Was there no one else there? No, probably just us from the UK lot.
Yeah.
So we've gone over with those guys. We were staying in Darling Harbour at, you know the name of the place, because I think you stayed there since, haven't you?
It's called the Goldsborough.
The Goldsborough.
Yeah.
The Goldsborough. And they were apartments, weren't they?
They were.
It wasn't a hotel.
Yeah.
It was
And bear in mind, this was our first Australia trip as well, wasn't it?
It was our first Australia trip. I'd never been away from home for that long. Okay, I was mid-20s, but it was
1996.
It was 96, yeah, because Kiri had just been born about 6 months previously. So 3 weeks away. I mean, there's so many things I still remember. Stupid things, like in that hotel, apart hotel, at the end of the corridor before you go into the car park was the cheesecake shop.
Yeah.
It's just my favourite place. The going over to Darling Harbour and eating. One of the mad things that we did was manage to get into the filming of Home and Away.
Yeah, that was absolutely bonkers, of which we actually did get into it. Because just to set the scene, so we're in Darling Harbour and we saw, actually, I think it was you and a couple of others that saw what was happening. And I'm pretty sure I was with...
this is one of our last nights as well, wasn't it?
It was one of the last nights.
Yeah.
And I was with Marley, I think. And then you guys came over and you're like, you're not going to believe it, they're filming Home and Away over there. It was their bicentennial episode or something. And they said that as long as we just follow with what everyone else is doing, we can get in amongst it, in like as an extra sort of thing. And we were supposed to be watching a firework display, weren't we? Yeah. And so all the lights were going off and we're going, ooh, like that, looking at this whilst Toadie and I can't remember the other, Selena maybe?
Selena was there and Jess. And,
they would do it. They were, oh yeah, that's it. They were doing their thing. And then I remember when we came home, thinking, I used to watch it religiously at that point, thinking I really want to see us on there. And I think Vinyl Groover, it ended on the end credits with him.
Scott just gets in it.
It went past us all, but Scott got on there as the end credits were going on. But I remember Dougal was loving it because I at the point I was wearing a Essential Platinum t-shirt. So a bit of plug-in for Essential Platinum.
But yeah, that was actually, we got some photos taken with them and everything.
Really cool.
Such a cool thing. But those... So what was mad is we would stay in Darling Harbour and then we'd go out and we would play at, we went to Canberra, went to Perth, went to, it's Adelaide, wasn't it, rather than Brisbane? Yeah, it's Adelaide, I think. And there was little adventures in each of those little trips. So I can't remember if Perth was the first. Well, no, we did the Breakfast Club in Sydney, which was just kind of, we did that every Friday night, didn't we? And it wasn't a big club, probably a few hundred people.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But when we did Perth, obviously it's 5-hour flight, Sydney to Perth, something like that. And first time away properly, and you get out and you got name boards up, and you got people there with cameras and a massive limo to pick you up. It's like, what the hell is going on? And they took us all around town, took us out for drinks, and took us. Oh, it was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was next level.
Do you know what? I can't really remember the party in Perth, if I'm honest. It was a bit of a strange one. But I just remember the limo picking us up and we having someone take us round, and so that was really cool. And then, we was going to mention Clarkey earlier. Clarkey was with us, wasn't
Clarkey was
with us. I knew there was someone else.
But did he fly out with us, or was he there before? Because I don't feel like he flew out with us.
I can't remember.
I've got a feeling Jeff may have already been there.
Possibly. But I do have a lasting memory of Rich on that trip. And I think it was the Canberra gig, because I'm sure, because I remember that Vinyl Groove had gone to New Zealand before, hadn't he? And he came in a couple of days later. And then we were playing midweek in Canberra, which was a Thursday night, I think it was. And we'd have to drive from Sydney to Canberra.
Yep.
It was about a 2.5 hour drive or something.
Yeah.
God, the old ticker's still working, mate. It's still going strong.
You're bringing the memories back strong.
Indeed. I remember being in Canberra and then looking down at the dance floor and seeing Clarkey with his hands in the air and playing Heart of God. I'm like, Rich, what you doing? But I think so. Wasn't it him that rewrote the lyrics to "You Have a Car, a Soul" to the dodgy exhaust and a manifold?
That was the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And bear in mind, Clarkey was obviously playing at that point very sort of industrial stuff, wasn't it?
Industrial techno at the time. But the amazing, he's such a good lad, Clarkey. We'd have a laugh about it. He had his own thoughts on hardcore. None of us were particularly enamoured by the really banging techno, but we was all good mates.
Yeah.
And we'd just have a laugh and take the mickey out of each other, and that's just how it was.
Absolutely.
And it just made it for better times, really. But there was, I'm just trying to think. That was it. It was Adelaide. So do you remember when we'd gone to this gig in Adelaide, and hopefully none of the Australian promoters are listening to this because it was a long time ago. So we got over there and we found out that there was another promoter was meant to book us, but a different promoter had another party on and booked us instead, just so that it didn't affect his big party that was going on.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
You vaguely remember this. And so I recall the party was really rubbish, but it was intended to be because he didn't want anyone at it, which was just
Was
mental.
this one in a car park? Was it in a like
No,
an
the car
underground
park one was Sydney.
Right.
So that got closed down, didn't it?
Yes.
Come on to that one in a second. But we'd gone back to the hotel all pretty unhappy at what this guy had basically done. And the guy, I don't think I did it, but I remember some of the guys had just phoned home and just sat on the phone for like an hour and a half chatting just to get back at him. And then we all did it because it would have cost an absolute arm and a leg in those hotel rooms. And then we phoned up the airport and we booked early flights and we did a bunk, jumped into some taxis and we flew straight back to Sydney,
That
didn't we?
I do remember. Because that was the last weekend we were there, wasn't it?
Was it the last weekend?
Yeah.
I can't remember, to be honest with you. But the Sydney one was obviously, everything was based around the Sydney party. And, oh yeah, this is where it gets a bit wonky, isn't it? Because the Sydney party kind of went on for a couple of days. And so...
For some of us.
Yeah, you were tucked up in bed by half 1 in the morning.
Standard lightweight.
So... we did the car park party, which the police eventually shut down. It was quite late on. I don't think it was early. We all played our sets, and then I think it was about 4 or 5 in the morning. The police come along and shut the party down. But probably while you went off to bed, a few of us went off to an after party in the city, and I think there was me and Jeff and possibly Scott, and we was there for a good few hours. and till sometime in the afternoon when they turned around and said, "Oh, are you ready for the boat party?" It's like you're having a laugh on you. So we ended up going on this boat party around.
I remember that. I was definitely on that.
You was on the boat party, but you'd been to bed during the day. We'd all been partying.
I had a refresh.
You had a refresh. So, you could tell who the party animal was. And that's why you're still looking about 25 and I'm looking about 85. But they were just great times. They really were. So I guess that would take us on to the slightly dark times of the Ibiza trip, which were just insane, wasn't it?
Well, I was over my head on that one. I
think we all were, mate,
yeah,
to be honest with you, because some of
that was absolutely insane.
Do we mention who we went with? Or do you know?
I mean, probably.
Yeah. Okay, it's all their fault.
Yeah.
It's all their fault. So we'd got taken. So Chris had organised it. It was a kind of a United Dance thing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really?
So Chris from United Dance had organised it.
United Dance, Mr. Brown had organised it, and there was Slipmap, there was Seduction, there was us.
There's Dougal Vibes.
Dougal Vibes.
Terry Turbo.
Now Terry Stone. And, well, carnage ensued, really. I mean, it was one of those situations where it just... Was Bunter over there as well?
Don't know.
I can't remember. Things were leaving balconies and ending up from 3 floors up on...
Oh, God, yeah. There was TVs, chairs coming out of hotel rooms.
It was awful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
it was rock star behaviour from...
It was. Not even going to mention who got involved in that kind of thing, but
no.
I certainly wasn't me involved in that kind of thing, Darren. And I know it wouldn't have been you. But some funny things. I think Dougal had his first beer on that holiday as well,
I think he did.
Yeah, there was...
a lot of people had their first something.
First shenanigans on that holiday. But the strange thing was, Ibiza wasn't really a hardcore place.
No.
So none of the... what was really odd is, for some reason, I can't remember which party it was, but one of the parties moved to Koo. So basically Koo is where Manumission was, and we went to Manumission on the Monday.
Yeah.
Which you came to, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went to
that club ended up being privileged, didn't it?
It's now privileged, yeah. 10,000 people, 8,000, 10,000 people on the Monday. For whatever reason, we ended up playing there as a hardcore night in front of what felt like 30 people. I don't know if it was 30 people, but in a club that holds 10,000, even a few hundred would have felt like 30 people. So that's a bit of a strange one. And then we basically plays No, it wasn't Escapades, was it? It was...
Chaos.
It's Chaos at the time, wasn't it? It was Chaos. It was completely Chaos, because weren't we leaving directly from Chaos to go back and get the plane, because we've been there 4 or 5 days?
Yeah. It was straight to the airport, wasn't it?
I mean, I think Dougal was pretty lost in that trip, because he was... Didn't something happen to his picture in his room? I think
a few rooms got smashed up, didn't they? And it just went... Do you know what my everlasting memory from that is? Is that...
The pain?
Yeah, that as well. But we all went out on a pedalo, right? Do you remember that?
It sounded very Only Fools and Horses about it.
But the day before, Seduction and Vibes and a few of them, they'd gone out on jet skis, right, on in the sea.
I seem to recall this, yeah.
Yeah. And this was at that point where Seduction was wearing a Kangol hat wherever he went.
Yes, he was, wasn't he?
So he even wore it when he was on the jet ski, right? Now he was out in the sea, and obviously he's going fast, and the Kangol hat just flew off, and he lost it, and he was absolutely fuming. And the next day, when we're out on the pedlos, just minding our own business, just, going out as far as we can, right? And I literally just happened to look over the side of the pedalo, and on the bottom of the ocean floor, I can see this black thing. And I'm like... That's Seduction's hat. Right, and we weren't near the shore, we were out quite far. And I literally dived down there and I pulled this Kangol hat back up. I felt like I was the saviour.
You was a hero.
I was a hero. I got his Kangol hat back for him.
Did he thank you for it?
He did thank me for it.
He did thank you for it.
Yeah,
he didn't wear it the other week when I saw him.
No, did he not?
No,
No,
he wasn't.
He's about 35 years ago.
Well, I can imagine how that sinks quite quickly because they were kind of wool, weren't they?
They were, yeah.
Just a little bit of weight of water would take that thing
like
straight
James
down.
Bond, diving in and finding the Kangol hat at the bottom of the sea.
But I guess the important thing is that was just a bit of a wonky trip, really, because although it was an experience, it's probably not my favourite experience because I think I was quite glad to get home.
Oh God, yeah. No, I was absolutely out of my comfort zone on that.
To be honest, this actually fits in quite well. But there was another kind of adventure with those guys to Chesington, wasn't there?
Do we?
Huh?
Do we talk about that one?
Chesington. Well, what the Bubble Works?
Yep.
You seem really unsure. Looking back, I mean, I don't think Chesington are going to come looking for us.
No.
All I remember Ibiza being far worse. But I remember
we got kicked out of Chesington, didn't we?
We got chased out of Chesington.
Yeah. But it's always the same troublemakers.
Well, we know who the troublemakers are, Mr. Brown and Mr. Stone. but we was in the Bubble Works and certain people kept getting out of the little things the pod things you go around in, and thought it was funny just to go walking around the Bubble Works. Yeah. And obviously the staff took exception to this. And I just remember the bit you're thinking about on this trip. So anyway, we're walking out of the Bubble Works through the back door. I think we've gone out of the back door and down some steps, and then a load of security come chasing after us. And even though we'd actually done nothing wrong ourselves, we just kind of felt obliged to run with everybody else.
Yeah. Got kicked out as well, didn't we?
Yeah, we got booted out of Chesington. Although I have been back with the kids since.
So have I, on the Bubble Works.
They didn't recognise me at all.
No, that's good.
Yeah, I think those security have left now. And I think we did go for an Indian meal afterwards, didn't we? Which we probably shouldn't mention in this.
Let's draw a line under that one.
Let's draw a line under this. Well, if anyone sees us out and wants to know about the Indian meal, we'll divulge everything at that point, I think. So we also spent a lot of time in the States.
Yes, we did.
It's really odd because my two little ones the other day were asking, Daddy, where have you been in America then? And I started listing them out, and then I was thinking, wow, we've been to that many places. So I've got them listed here. So we went to LA more than once, Chicago, San Francisco, Austin, Texas, Sacramento, California, Palm Springs, Vegas, Phoenix, and then obviously in Canada we did Toronto and Edmonton. Had some amazing times out there. I guess LA was always great for us because we went there with Hicks and we went there with DNA as well, didn't we?
Yep.
Little DNA, bless him. And I'm sure he's not now, but he's a lot older now, like we all are. But he used to love going to LA.
Oh, it was fabulous. First time we went to Universal Studios as well.
Universal Studios, and we went with. Did we go with Danny or Danny Lost Boy, or was it someone else that took us? I can't remember.
I can't remember, but I know they drove us around the back lot, didn't they?
Yeah, they knew someone that worked there, and they took us in around the back, and we pulled up right next to all the different things, and it was amazing. Just felt like rock stars again, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, the parties were always decent, but what was really odd, and particularly the Palm Springs one, was one of the first EDCs, really, wasn't it, from Pascal? Well, it was Nocturnal Wonderland.
Nocturnal Wonderland, wasn't it? So
Wonderland,
Insomniacs, yeah.
Yeah, so it was all Insomniacs, but that was 98, 99, maybe 2000. It might have been 2000.
It was 99 or 2000, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was on polo fields, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What was really funny about that is we was just used to cow fields, was just avoiding the cow shit wherever you went in England, and then you get over to Palm Springs and you're walking on polo fields which are cut with scissors.
Yeah, it was unreal.
Ridiculous. but it was just
how he got that venue then, I do not know.
I have no idea. I'm sure he's never been back there. Maybe he has, who knows. But I just there's so many. I mean, the Vegas thing was just. Now I'm going to mention this, right? on the podcast because yesterday I got back the videotape that I made of that trip to Vegas.
No way.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
I saw it about a year and a half ago
Right.
because I took my sister's video camera.
Right.
And I watched it then and I said to her last week, can you find that video? Because I really want to edit it and put it on the box set just for people to see. And it's Mother's Day yesterday, so went down to see Mum and got the tape. So I'm going to take it in, get it digitally recorded.
Nice.
And have a little edit up of
Oh,
that.
I'd love to see
because that trip alone, so we'd obviously gone out there and it's a very famous date if you're an Englishman because on that first day there, we get into Vegas. The first we get in on Friday, didn't we? And we're staying around the corner from Caesar's Palace, I think. The following day, England were playing Germany in a qualifier. I can't remember if it's World Cup or Euros, but in a qualifier in Germany. So the first thing we do in 2001, both bang into our football at the time, we find a place to watch the game the next morning because it was on at 10:30. So just at the end of the strip, you do a left by MGM and there's a pub down there called the Crown and Anchor. And they were showing the football. I think it's $10, $15 to get in. And
there's a little marquee out the back, wasn't it?
There's a little marquee out the back. So we've all got up in the morning and we were waiting for Simon Apex, weren't we? And Simon, being an Englishman living in California, he wasn't too keen. He goes, do we have to go to watch the football? It's like, Si, come on. Literally, we are not missing this game. Because after that, we was going to drive down to the desert to stay in a motel, weren't we? So we gone to the game and we was all having a few beers. It's nice and early, all got our England shirts on, all had crew cuts, all had skinheads at the time as well, didn't we? And of course, England beat Germany 5-1. And we all go out there singing and half cut and everything. And then we eventually get into the van. Now, Hicksy's driving, having to drive into the desert. I'm half pissed and I'm navigating. So I've got a map.
It wasn't the best recipe, was it?
It wasn't the best. It wasn't the finest recipe. And then in the back, there was there was Breezy, there was Cole Storm.
Yep.
And
Energy? Kev Energy?
Kev was with us. Sharky was with us. There was Simon. And I can't for the life of me remember Simon's wife's name at the time, but she was in the back as well. So we're taking this journey down to, this is going to be far more context to this when you see it on video. but basically, it's a few hours away, isn't it, this motel? And we're driving down there and we're still drinking, from what I recall. And as you're getting into the day, it's getting so hot as well. And I think at one point there was a little bit of tension between possibly Si and Hicksy, who was driving. I can't remember for the life of me why. But I'm sure Hicksy has said, Si, can you shut up or something like that? And at one point, he's jumped into the back of the van. So I'm sat in the front of the van and having to then lean across with my hand as the vehicle is
still moving
through the desert. I'm having to find the brake, which is obviously not where I'm expecting it to be.
Do you know what? It was an argument over the fact that someone had printed out a Yahoo map to see where we're going, and I remember Simon's missus at the time was dissing the fact that it was a Yahoo map, and then Hicksy lost it.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, I think that was something to do with that.
But I mean, it was just looking back, it was just funny.
Yeah.
But one of the best things that comes up on the video, and when it's edited, it'll be really funny. But you got bits where everyone's just chatting, and bits where people are sort of getting a bit narky with each other, having a few more beers, and then all of a sudden we're all singing "Fly on the Wings of Love"
in the van.
in the van. And it's just quality. It is just comical. It's comic gold. Yeah. but that was another one. But what that did, we ended up in this motel, and there was times where when we stopped, and I'm still filming. I don't know why I kept filming, but I remember Kev walking past, doing some kind of strange kind of dinosaur movement thing. Just, it was completely random, but just so funny on film. But I remember the day after the party, which was on an airfield, I think, wasn't it? We had another day of doing nothing. And do you remember Scott Brown turned up because Scott had been
Yes.
staying somewhere else? And we was all round the pool, drinking again, I think, as you did in those days. And there, I don't know why, but we got music on and everything, and there was a plastic table, and for some reason the top of this table was taken, the legs were taken off of it, and Carl thought it would be a great idea to surf the table on the pool.
I remember it well.
So I think he threw the table in top first and then took a run to land on the table. But he went down, his knee hit the tabletop. His knee went through the tabletop and the jagged, hard plastic just ripped his knee to shreds. There's blood everywhere in the pool.
It's that scene out of Jaws, wasn't it?
It was like a scene out of Jaws, yeah. It wouldn't have looked out of place at Universal Studios just previously. But it was. I mean, I've watched that since. But it was a right mess, his knee, wasn't it?
I need to watch that video.
So as soon as I've got it recorded, which I intend to do this week, I'll get that to you straight away. So that was America. We had lots of fun in America. Even just visit. I mean, you get to do it all the time now, so it's probably old hat to you now, I guess, isn't it? Just going to the same places.
I mean, you don't
do any touristy stuff anymore.
I do actually.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I love going back to like Universal and Six Flags, all of those sorts of things.
Okay.
Yeah. So I never get tired of all of that stuff.
Oh, fair play. Because I remember we didn't actually, because we was going to go to the prison, weren't we?
Alcatraz. Yeah.
But it was raining and I think there was no. Oh no, we had to book 2 weeks in advance. That was it.
Yeah.
We was only there for the night, weren't we?
Yeah.
We went to Fisherman's Wharf instead, and blah blah blah, and Chicago on Navy Pier, and all those kind of. I mean, it's just great memories, really, isn't it? So
absolutely.
One of the other things I wanted to touch on was driving to gigs back in the day, because now with the wonders of sat-nav and everything else, don't even have to think about it. To be honest with you, it won't be long before you don't actually have to drive yourself. You just like put it in and off you go. But driving to gigs with a map. Remember those days?
Well, the good thing for me is you were the driver, generally, and the map reader. I mean, you were 5 years my senior, so I pretty much left it all to you. But
multitasking.
Do you know? I often think about it these days because sometimes when I'm going to gigs in this country and I'm driving, I think, how on earth would I have found these back in the day by reading an A to Z if I'm in London, or just a general map going somewhere? I mean, I just don't know how on earth we found these, and we were on time to the gigs.
Yes.
So
I mean, it's madness, isn't it?
Yeah. But that was even a thing.
It was a thing, but I mean, most of the time, the gigs were in places where there was no A to Z. It was like London was A to Z. I don't think many other places probably had an A to Z, but you were just trying to have to figure your way through.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we made half of them, to be honest. It was. I don't want to go back to those days in that respect, because I prefer just putting in a postcode and it takes you there.
Yeah, much
easier. But that was kind of part of the fun.
It was, and we didn't know anything different, did we? So that's just how it was.
No. But the other thing as well, and this is back in the day, and Stevie Mallet will always remember this, back in the day when there was no Red Bull. And so driving to gigs, well, we never, unless we were playing in Scotland or Ireland, there was no hotels, possibly Newcastle. So every time it was like you go and you come back, and on some it was like we'd do 3 or 4 in a night. So you'd inevitably, having left home at 5 in the afternoon and driving back at 6, 7, 8 in the morning, and which is bloody dangerous. And I remember Steve was with me. We'd done, don't know why you weren't coming to this one, but we'd done United Dance, and then we was drive to Morecambe, that dome thing. Do you remember that dome thing in Morecambe? But United Dance was leaving at 10, and Morecambe was 4 in the morning, I think, 3 or 4 in the morning. Just like driving up the M1. So we hadn't even got that far. And I just remember my head hitting the steering wheel.
I'm quite glad I wasn't on
Yeah,
that.
you're probably quite lucky. Maybe maybe it's a premonition.
Yeah, maybe.
But Steve always says he remembers like looking at me because he'd always look when I was driving. He'd looked and he'd just see my eyes like shutting and opening, and then bang, head hit the steering wheel. But we had to put in at the services, and I had to find the services that had coffee and Pro Plus.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing else
No.
to do. And the most annoying thing about that, we get to the gig, and they closed it early.
Oh, you're joking.
Didn't even get paid. So
No.
I thought, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. You risked your life for nothing.
Risked my life for nothing. So, but that was what's so frustrating about gigs in those days. It was,
Yeah. And we should probably point out as well that, back in those days, I don't think any of us out of the whole scene had management, agents. At that point, we were taking our own gigs.
If Matt did or not.
Yeah, it was a very...
The drum and bass guys generally did.
Yeah, it was a very different time back then.
Yeah, and it was a lot of the time it was potluck. So there's that one time that we discussed earlier when we had 3 gigs, started in Stoke. We won't mention the promoters because that's probably not fair. But started in Stoke and didn't get paid there during the first set of the night. Drove to Morecambe for a completely different gig to the one I just mentioned. Didn't get paid there because, and in fairness, the promoter said to us, "We haven't got anyone in. You can play, but I can't pay you." So we then went off to Sheffield. I think it was probably for Uprising, possibly, and we got paid at that one. But yeah, it was a risk you took.
Yeah,
and so we never earned a lot of money back in those days anyway because we had to split everything. But when you're doing 3 gigs, you're traveling all night and you're getting paid for one of them. It's not good.
No, it's tough.
It's not good.
Yeah, there was definitely some tough times. And you have to remember as well that, the money the DJs were earning back then, even though, there's some big names out there, it wasn't that good. It wasn't good at all.
No.
Financially from the DJing point of view, and obviously for a double act, obviously you're having to split it as well.
But there is, hardcore above everything else. There's a lot of people that don't like the fact that there's agents involved and things like that. But it just goes to prove there has to be because
they're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason.
Yeah.
If you're not going to get paid, don't think I'm coming to do your gig because that's just not on.
Yeah.
And having to go through that in the early days of doing multiple gigs and not getting paid in one night.
Yeah.
Got every reason to go, enough's enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that anymore because that's not really on. And one of the other things as well was the games we used to play in the car to pass the time. Babylonian Ballcock Shop.
One of the gems.
We spend hours playing that, literally starting with A and then go. I think we've even got through the alphabet 1.5 times, possibly. We've become so good at it.
Yeah, to Doncaster and back, I think that one was.
To Doncaster and back. And the funny thing was, about 2 weeks later, someone would go, recite Babylonian Ballcock Shop.
Yeah.
And we could remember it as well.
Yeah.
I don't remember it now, but, it's 27 years.
I certainly don't remember it now.
You don't remember what you did yesterday, but... So, yeah, that was about that.
Do you remember those